Hi, welcome back to Mueller Projects. Today I'm going to be putting the Makita rear handle saw and the Milwaukee rear handle saw side by side, comparing them and just doing a bit of comparison for some of the specs and some of the features of each one. They are basically the similar saw, but there is some differences between them. So what I've been using the most is actually the Makita one. I've had this for a number of weeks and I've actually had a real good go with this. Really nice to use if you're doing a lot of cuts and some big timber, doing a lot of ripping. It's definitely got a lot of power when it comes to ripping versus just a normal top handle saw. So a couple of things I do really enjoy about this is just the way it feels in your hand when you're ripping something. Your center line from your handle is basically your balance line, and when you're ripping something it's nice to feel behind the saw. And if you're cutting big floor joists, which I did a while back, you can basically just hold the saw and it will just basically cut straight down. Just the way that gravity and balance works, you're not always having to use your speed square and still end up with very square cuts. Really solid rafter hook, which quite comfortably goes over a 45 bit of timber and some, because often your rough sawn timber is wider, nearly 50 mil, and so that easily goes over that. Really nice small motor when you compare it versus the Milwaukee one. Handles are much the same. Makita uses this wee just button style that you can basically push with either hand, which is really nice. Very easy adjustment of depth with a rubber over grip on the handle here, just a metal handle for the blade. This is all in Imperial, which coming into New Zealand would have been nice if this was metric, as that's what we use in New Zealand, but I understand these come from the States, so that's what they use over there. One of the biggest features I do like about this, which does differ between the Milwaukee, is the ability to have preset indent, which is you have 53, 45 and 22.5. So what I mean by that is if you put that to 45, you undo that blade or that lock and it'll only go to 45 degrees. If you put it to 22.5, it'll only go to 22.5. It is quite hard to see your other measurements. It's not as precise, as you've only got to mark every 5 mil, versus when I compare the other one, you'll see the difference with that. The dust port on here is over the side here, which it does throw the sawdust out there all right, but when it gets a wee bit wet, if you're cutting some wet timber, it just all basically just spins around and can get a wee bit clogged up around the guard. Spanner to change the blade, which is nice to have it on board, something that you're not going to lose or try and dig through the bottom of your toolbox to find. So this weighs about 4.3 kilos and with a battery on it is just getting up around the 5 kilo mark. Definitely lighter than the old corded rear handle saws. Quickly looking at the Milwaukee one now. So biggest difference I noticed when I've been using this is your center line of your handle versus the center line of the saw is about that much different. So your center line of here is basically where this balance point of the saw is. It's not actually where your hand is in line with. That's possibly due to the size of the motor, as if you look at these side by side, big difference in the size of the motor. Where they put the battery is different, it's right behind the handle versus on the side on the Makita one. Good solid rafter hook, but the only criticism I have about this is I haven't made it wide enough. Between these two bars here is basically 45 mil, so when you actually push it on about a 45 mil timber, it actually almost gets stuck there, which is a bit annoying when you're trying to lift it up, and it definitely won't fit over rough sawn timber. So they could have easily made that an extra 10-15 mil bigger and then it would have made it just that much better. Opposite to the Makita one, so here you've got a bit of a plastic handle for the blade, and then you've just got a metal one without a rubber over grip for your depth adjustment, which is nice and easy, but yet again it's an imperial, not metric. Blade spanner again in a very similar place as the Makita, and then Milwaukee uses this little wee tab system, so you push that all like that. So if you're doing it with one hand, it's okay. If you're trying to do it with the other finger, you'd be doing it that hander. So it is just a little bit different. It's like you're pushing it down as opposed to just having to touch it. Biggest difference is up the front. So you haven't got your preset indents like the Makita one, but what you do have in exchange for that is a nice scale rule, basically in 2mm increments, through 1mm increments all the way through. But if you're going to 45, you actually have to line that up to 45 and then push that over. As with the Makita, you can set it to 45 and do it a lot quicker. So that's the biggest difference I noticed with that. This weighs a couple of 100 grams heavier than the Makita one, but the biggest difference is when you're running the batteries. So when I give these a go after, so I'll be comparing an 8 amp fully charged versus a 4 amp 40 volt fully charged. People say, why are you using a 4 versus an 8? So the 8 amp is 18 volt, the 4 amp is a 40 volt, which is twice the voltage of this. So the batteries are actually, the 8 amp slightly bigger, but for voltage wise, from how I understand with my limited electrical knowledge, basically it is comparing the same voltage side by side. Yes, this is a high output, and I know Makita has released the new high output ones, which I haven't got my hand on yet to have a try. So that's what we'll be running it against, a 4 versus an 8. So this one can take up to your 12 amps. I didn't really notice any difference in cutting power between the 8 and the 12, and obviously with the Makita you can put anything from the 2.5s all the way up to the 8s, which in voltage wise would be equivalent if you could have a 16 on the Milwaukee one. So I know these blades aren't brand new, but they've only done a wee bit of cutting. So we're just going to do some ripping cuts and some cross cuts and just do a bit of a comparison.
To do a dangerous thing in style.
So what's my take on Milwaukee versus Makita? So they are a wee bit different. So the Milwaukee one definitely has a lot of power, but then I'd say the Makita one actually has more power. It is double the voltage, and also spins at a higher RPM. the Makita one spinning at 6,400 versus the Milwaukee spinning only at 5,800. Upshot that the Milwaukee has is it's definitely got a better angle adjustment at the front to get more precise angles, versus the Makita one that is a wee bit harder to get those precise ones. The chip ejection, or where the dust comes out on the Milwaukee one's definitely better than the Makita one, but then the Makita one definitely has more depth of cut, as you'll see here in this video that I've been cutting some house piles, and with the Makita one within 3 cuts I can get all the way through, as with the Milwaukee one it leaves about a 5mm piece of timber in the middle that you have to cut with a handsaw, or maybe a 4th cut might get it. But yeah, that was one thing that I found a wee bit annoying, that for a 185 it wasn't actually getting that full 66mm that they're saying. It's more like 61, 62 at the very most, versus the Makita one definitely gives you what they say it's cutting.